Welcome to Alien Whispers, where humanity's defiant spark ignites cosmic sagas against the void's cruel odds. Beneath a canopy of alien stars, their light fractured through a dome of living crystal, a silver-skinned being shimmered, her violet eyes catching the glow like twin nebulae. Why would she, bound by a single chance to love, risk it all for a human stranger? Their connection, forbidden by her world's cold laws, pulsed with a warmth that could unravel galaxies. Humans, often mocked as fleeting, taught the cosmos to crave eternity through their reckless hearts. Where any species would bow to order, humans kindle love from the void's iciest rules. What secret fuels their defiance of a galaxy that denies them? Here, hearts are forged. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And are you ready to stand with humanity's romantics? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Torrin Vale, a human diplomat whose velvet voice had soothed wars and won hearts across the post-Earth diaspora, stepped into the diplomatic hall of the Solari, a species revered for their crystalline architecture and rigid reproductive rights. Sent to secure peace after Earth's raucous expansion into the Orion Arm, Torrin was tasked with keeping things professional with a species whose mating customs made human flirtations seem quaint. His charm, a weapon honed on a dozen worlds, was meant to stay sheathed. But then he saw her. Lyrian, a Solari envoy, glided toward him, her silver skin refracting the hall's bioluminescent glow, her form draped in a translucent blue shift that clung like liquid starlight. Her violet eyes, wide and searching, met his, and her breath came in soft, rhythmic pulses, not panting, but a biological echo of his presence, a trait her aide later called resonance. Torrin's pulse quickened. "Torrin Vale, I presume?" she asked, her voice a melody of wind chimes. "Until this moment," he said, flashing a grin. "I thought I knew who I was." Her skin shimmered brighter, a flush of amethyst, and she averted her gaze, her breath hitching. His instincts screamed attraction. His training warned of cultural missteps. An aide whispered, "She resonates with your energy. It's involuntary. Please, restrain your vigor." Torrin nodded, already failing. Over the next hour, as they exchanged diplomatic niceties, Lyrian's every word was laced with that soft, pulsing breath, her eyes darting to his whenever he spoke. Each time he held her gaze, her resonance deepened, a sound like distant waves. He hadn't even flirted yet, but the air between them crackled. Later, they walked the Solari's spiral gardens, where vines pulsed with sapphire light, and Torrin tested the waters. "Lyrian, you don't just speak for your people. You make them unforgettable. You're a star in their constellation." Her hands fluttered to her face. "That's more than anyone has ever said." Her breath pulsed faster, and she took his offered arm, trembling at the touch. "Is it always like this with you?" she whispered. "Only when it's real," he replied. Her eyes locked on his, a question forming in their violet depths. "Solari don't connect like this," she said. "Our bonding is singular, purposeful." "No spark, no chase?" he asked, teasing. She shook her head. "One union." Then stillness. Torrin's heart sank. "One chance, then nothing." "What if you wanted more?" he asked, leaning closer. Her voice was a breath. "That would be reckless." Yet she didn't pull away. The garden's light bathed them, and Torrin felt the weight of her choice. Why was she drawn to him, knowing her body's limits? His charm, usually a game, felt like a lifeline now, a bridge across species. As they stood, her resonance softened, intimate, and he knew she was rewriting her world's rules, one breath at a time. The spiral gardens of the Solari capital, their vines pulsing with sapphire light, seemed to hum with the same rhythm as Lyrian's resonant breaths. Torrin walked beside her, their arms still linked, her silver skin warm against his. The memory of her trembling touch from the diplomatic hall lingered, a silent promise that this was no ordinary negotiation. The air carried the scent of alien blossoms, sharp and sweet, and above, The crystal dome refracted starlight into a kaleidoscope of blues. Torin's mission was peace, but his heart, ever the rogue, chased something more, a connection that defied the Solari's rigid biology. Lyrian's steps slowed as they reached a secluded alcove where a single vine, thick as a human arm, coiled around a glowing orb. "This is a memory bloom," she said, her voice soft but steady despite her pulsing breaths. "It records emotions for our archives. Our unions, they're stored, not felt." Her violet eyes flicked to his, a flicker of defiance in their depths. "Your people feel everything." "What?" Torin chuckled, a subtle HFY jab at Solari formality. "Because we're terrible at following scripts. Emotions are our rebellion against the void." Her resonance deepened, a sound like a tide pulling at his senses. He leaned closer, testing. "What's it like, Lyrian, to feel me through that resonance?" Her skin flared amethyst, and she turned away, muttering, "Your pheromones are a diplomatic incident." But she didn't retreat. Torin grinned, recalling her flushed reaction in the hall. "You're the one resonating. I'm just standing here, being charming." She made a small, musical sound, half laugh, half exasperation. "You're impossible." They resumed walking, the path curving toward a balcony overlooking the Solari city, its spires like frozen flames under the stars. Hover pods drifted below, their lights winking like fireflies. Lyrian's voice grew quiet. "I studied you, Torin. Your record. You've swayed entire councils with a smile." "Allegedly," he said, winking. "I prefer diplomacy with a side of wit." She stopped, her gaze piercing. "Why me?" The question hung, raw and vulnerable, a mystery wrapped in her trembling hands. Torin stepped in front of her, his voice low. "Because you're a paradox. You're bound by rules, but glow with something free. When you resonate, I forget every playbook I've ever read." Her breath hitched, no longer just biological. "Solari don't feel this pull. Our unions are coded, efficient. One act, then our bodies enter the stillness. Desire fades. Forever." She touched the vine, its glow dimming under her fingers. "I shouldn't want more." "But you do," Torin said, not a question. Her silence was answer enough. He brushed her hand, and she didn't pull away, her resonance now a soft, intimate pulse. "What if you chose the spark over the script?" Her eyes widened. "That's forbidden. Our biology ensures compliance. To want more is to risk everything." Yet she leaned closer, her breath warm against his cheek. The tension between them was a living thing, a question of whether she'd dare defy her species' design. Torin's charm, usually a shield, felt exposed, his heart racing for her answer. The balcony's edge framed them against the cosmos, and Torin sensed a cultural quirk unfolding. Solari bonded for lineage, not love, their emotions archived like data. Humans, though, wove love into chaos, a trait that baffled the galaxy. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "But if you want to feel this, I'm here." Lyrian's fingers tightened around his. "If I choose you," she whispered, "it's my only chance. My body will change. The stillness will claim me after." Her voice broke. "But I want to know what it's like. Not just duty. Joy." Torin's throat tightened. Her courage, her hunger for something her species denied, mirrored humanity's defiance. He recalled her shy laugh from the garden, a sound he wanted to hear again. "Then let's make it worth it," he said, his voice a vow. She exhaled, her resonance a melody of need. "Tonight," she said. "My quarters. No council, no rules." Torin's pulse thundered. He nodded, already imagining the weight of her choice. As they parted, her gaze lingered, her breaths a soft echo in the night. The Solari city hummed below as Torin walked away from the balcony, Lyrian's resonant breaths still echoing in his mind like a melody he couldn't shake. Her invitation, tonight, her quarters, no rules, hung heavy, a promise laced with rebellion. The memory of her trembling fingers brushing his in the spiral gardens fueled his steps, each one a defiance of the diplomatic restraint he'd sworn to uphold. The stars above the crystal dome seemed to pulse in time with his heart, a cosmic witness to a bond that could rewrite her world's laws. Torin's charm, usually a polished tool, felt raw now, a spark that could ignite or destroy. Lyrian waited outside the council chambers the next morning, not in the formal silks of diplomacy, but in a flowing silver gown that caught the dawn's light like liquid mercury. Her violet eyes sparkled with a boldness that hadn't been there before, though her resonance started the moment Torin approached, a soft tide of sound that made his skin prickle. "You're early," he teased, leaning in just enough to test her. "Hoping to catch me off guard." Her skin shimmered with an amethyst flush, and she covered her mouth, muffling a small, musical gasp. "I was merely ensuring punctuality," she said, but her eyes betrayed her, darting to his with a mix of nerves and want. Torin chuckled, a subtle HFY nod to human mischief. "Punctuality looks good on you. That gown's practically a treaty violation." She swatted his arm lightly, a gesture so human it startled them both. "You're incorrigible," she muttered, but her resonance deepened, intimate and unscripted. They walked together down a quiet corridor, its walls etched with Solari runes that glowed faintly, telling stories of a species bound by duty. Below, the city's hoverpods wove patterns of light, a reminder of the world watching them. "I thought about you all night," Lyrian said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're kind, you chase this feeling. Desire. Why risk so much for something so fleeting?" The question carried a weight, a mystery about what their bond might cost her. Torin recalled her confession in the gardens, her species' singular union, the stillness that followed, and felt the stakes sharpen. "Because fleeting doesn't mean meaningless," he said, stopping to face her. "Humans burn bright because we know the dark's coming. You feel that pull now, don't you?" Her breath hitched, and she nodded, her fingers twisting the edge of her gown. "It's terrifying," she admitted. "Solari don't crave. Our biology is precise. One reproductive act, then the stillness shuts it down. No second chances." Torin's chest tightened. Her vulnerability, her hunger for something beyond her species' design, was a mirror to humanity's defiance of the galaxy's cold rules. "You want more than precision," he said. "You want the fire." Her eyes locked on his, violet depths swirling with resolve. "I want to feel alive, not just function. If I choose you, Torin, it's not just a moment. It's everything." Her voice trembled, but her stance was firm, a rebellion against her world's collectivist rigidity. The Solari valued lineage over love, their emotions archived in memory blooms, not lived. Humans, though, wove passion into chaos, a trait that baffled and seduced the stars. He took her hand, her resonance pulsing through their touch like a shared heartbeat. "Then let's make it everything," he said. "No half measures." Her smile, tentative but radiant, was a callback to her shy laugh in the gardens, a sound he'd carry forever. They stood in the corridor, the runes glowing brighter, as if sensing their defiance. A Solari aide approached, her own silver skin dimmer, her eyes narrow. "Lyrian, the council waits." This interaction risks resonance overload. The warning was sharp, a cultural taboo unveiled. Solari biology couldn't handle prolonged emotional bonds without destabilizing their systems. Lyrian's hand tightened in Torin's. "I'm aware," she said, her voice steady. "I choose my risks." The aide retreated, but the tension lingered. Torin grinned, another HFY moment slipping through. "You're starting to sound like a human, picking fights with fate." Lyrian's laugh, soft and musical, broke the silence. "Perhaps your pheromones are contagious." As they parted for the council session, her resonance lingered in the air, a promise of tonight. Torin's heart raced, not just for her, but for what she represented, a spark that could challenge the cosmos. Why was she willing to risk her only chance for him? The question burned, a fire he'd stoke in her quarters, where no rules could bind them. The council session dragged, a blur of Solari formalities and Torin's carefully measured words, but Lyrian's promise, her quarters, tonight, no rules, burned in his mind like a star. Her defiant stance in the corridor, choosing her risks over her species' rigid collectivism, echoed in his pulse. The memory of her musical laugh from the gardens and her trembling hand in the rune-lit hall wove a thread of intimacy that no diplomatic treaty could match. As the session ended, Torin slipped away, the Solari city's glowing spires fading behind him. The stars above the crystal dome seemed to lean closer, as if the cosmos itself awaited their rebellion. Lyrian's quarters were tucked in a quiet wing of the capital, marked by a single orb of amber light pulsing above the door. No guards, no aides, just the soft hum of Solari technology, like a heartbeat woven into the walls. The door slid open before Torin touched it, revealing Lyrian standing barefoot in a gossamer robe of pale gold, its fabric clinging to her silver skin like a second starlight. Her violet eyes burned with a mix of courage and nerves, her resonance a gentle tide that quickened as he stepped inside. The room glowed with soft, shifting hues, its curved walls mimicking the spiral garden's organic flow. "You came," she said, her voice a melody of relief and want. Torin smiled, his charm a warm shield against the weight of her choice. Miss a date with the galaxy's boldest rebel? Never. Her skin flared amethyst, and she laughed, a sound that recalled her tentative giggle in the corridor, a human spark in her alien heart. He stepped closer, the air between them electric. "Are you sure?" he asked, voice low. Her eyes flickered honest. "No, but I want to be." She took his hand, her fingers trembling but firm, and led him deeper into the room. The bed, low and fluid like the Solari's memory blooms, shimmered under the amber light. "Solari don't do this," she whispered. "We don't touch for pleasure. It's too much for our hearts." Torin's grin was pure HFY mischief. "Hearts are what humans do best. We break them, mend them, and dive back in." Her resonance deepened, a sound like waves kissing a shore, and she reached for her robe. The fabric fell like mist, pooling at her feet, leaving her bare, silver skin glowing, vulnerable yet unafraid. Torin undressed slowly, letting her see, letting her choose. Her breath pulsed faster, no longer just biology but desire, raw and new. He slid his hands along her arms, reverent, feeling her tremble under his touch. Her skin was warm, alive, every inch a defiance of her species' clinical unions. "Still sure?" he asked one last time. Her answer was a kiss, tentative, learning, but hungry. The moment her lips met his, her resonance shifted, a low moan escaping her, startling them both. "I didn't know," she gasped. "It could feel like this." "You're just getting started," Torin said, guiding her to the bed. The surface molded to their bodies, warm and alive, amplifying every touch. His hands and lips moved with care, teasing her into sensations her biology wasn't built for. Solari mating was efficient, a single act for lineage, but Lyrian craved more: pleasure, connection, the human fire. She writhed beneath him, her gasps in Solari tongue a song he didn't need to translate. Her body knew, and that was enough. When they joined, fully and deeply, her cry was ecstasy and awe, her silver form arching as if reaching for the stars. She gripped him, her resonance a wild rhythm, and Torin felt her break every rule her species lived by. Lyrian's climax came hard, then again, a cascade of pleasure her biology shouldn't allow. Tears streaked her face, mingling with laughter, joy, not duty. "This isn't possible," she whispered, voice shaking. "We're not made for this." "But you are," Torin said, brushing her hair back, her skin still glowing under his fingers. "You rewrote the stars." Her laugh, bright and free, was a callback to their garden stroll, a sound that carried her rebellion. The mystery of her choice, why him, why now, unfolded in her trembling hands, her body defying the stillness her kind accepted. As they lay together, the room's light softened, the hum of the walls a lullaby. Lyrian's resonance slowed, intimate, her violet eyes searching his. "What happens now?" she asked, a new tension rising. Would her body still enter the stillness, or had their bond changed her forever? Torin didn't know, but he held her close, their hearts a quiet defiance against the galaxy's rules. The amber glow of Lyrian's quarters softened, wrapping Torin and Lyrian in a cocoon of warmth as they lay entwined, her silver skin still shimmering from their union. Her resonance, once a wild tide, now pulsed gently, a heartbeat shared between them. The memory of her ecstatic cry in the spiral gardens and her trembling defiance in the corridor wove through Torin's mind, each moment a thread in the tapestry of their rebellion. The Solari city beyond the walls hummed, oblivious to the rules they'd shattered. Above, the crystal dome framed a sky of stars, witnesses to a love that defied the galaxy's cold design. Lyrian's violet eyes, soft but searching, met his. "I feel alive," she whispered, her voice a melody of wonder. "Not just my body, but my heart. Solari don't keep this after." Her fingers traced his chest, tentative, as if memorizing him before the stillness could claim her. Torin's charm, ever his shield, faltered under the weight of her words. He brushed a strand of her hair back, his touch a vow. "You're more than their rules, Lyrian. You always were." She smiled, a flicker of her laugh from the gardens, but a shadow crossed her face. What if the stillness comes now? What if this fire fades? The question hung, a final mystery. Had their bond rewritten her biology, or would her species' rigidity reclaim her? Torin's heart ached, but he grinned, a spark of HFY defiance. "Then we'll steal every moment until it does. Humans are good at stealing from fate." Her laugh, bright and musical, broke the tension, a sound that echoed their corridor banter. "You're absurd," she said, but her resonance deepened, intimate, as she nestled closer. The bed, fluid and warm, cradled them, its technology a silent ally in their rebellion. Beyond the room, Solari culture demanded conformity, unions for lineage, emotions archived in memory blooms. But Lyrian had chosen joy, a human spark that burned through their collectivist veil. They rose, dressing slowly, her gold robe slipping on like liquid light. Torin watched her, marveling at her courage. "You've changed everything," he said. "Not just for you, but for me." She tilted her head, curious. "Ow! Your kind sees humans as reckless," he said, stepping closer. "But you saw my heart. You trusted it. That's the spark we carry, love that defies the void." Her eyes shimmered, and she kissed him, soft but fierce, her resonance a warm pulse. The moment felt eternal, a defiance of the stillness that loomed. As they stepped into the corridor, the city's spires glowed beyond the crystal walls, their light fractured into rainbows. A Solari aide approached, her silver skin dim, her gaze sharp. "Lyrian, the Council senses irregularities in your resonance." The accusation was clear. Her prolonged emotions threatened their system's balance. Lyrian's hand found Torin's, her stance unyielding. "Let them sense it," she said. "I'm not silent." The aide retreated, but the weight of her words lingered. Torin chuckled, another HFY jab. "You're starting a revolution with that attitude. Care to recruit me?" Lyrian's laugh, free and bold, was a callback to their balcony defiance, a sound that carried her new truth. They walked toward the gardens, the vines pulsing sapphire, as if celebrating their bond. In the days that followed, Lyrian's resonance remained, defying the stillness. Tests confirmed her biology had shifted. Her body, sparked by human passion, no longer followed the Solari script. Whispers spread among her kind, some calling her a heretic, others a pioneer. Torin, his mission complete, stayed, his charm now a bridge for peace, and something more, a legacy of connection. Together, they stood under the stars, her hand in his, a beacon of what humanity could kindle. The narrative slowed, the stars above softening their glow. Humanity's triumph wasn't in conquest, but in this, a single heart, silver and bold, learning to burn with love. Lyrian's choice, her defiance of the stillness, proved humans weren't fleeting but eternal, their emotional depth a flame that warmed even the coldest cosmos. What made them special? Their reckless hearts, forging bonds where logic demanded silence. As Torin and Lyrian gazed upward, their silhouettes merged against the dome, a quiet promise of humanity's romantic legacy, a spark that would echo across the stars, inspiring others to love against the void's cruel odds.